Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 95 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. This one was a doozy, so let's get into it. We start in the back half of the Chastity's Nook. The party has just grabbed Astrid, and Essek threw up an anti-magic field, revealing himself and Astrid to the party after their illusions have been dropped. Essek asks Astrid if she knows where Ludinus is and what he is doing. Astrid says that he's been moving things around for unseen factions for a while now, but she hasn't been a part of any of it. She didn't align herself with him, and she didn't think things would have become this disastrous after everything's happened. That's why she went into hiding. She knew she'd be targeted, so now she hides just like Essek hides. Essek asks again where Ludinus is, and Astrid said that she's not totally sure, but he is somewhere deep within Eiselcross. She knows he spent the last 5 years around the Genesis ward, and heard from someone that she's been working with, or who's working under Ludinus, about a location known as the Cultus Thalmus. So if they are going to look around, they should probably start there. Chenny asks Essek if he is from the dynasty. Essek says no, he is with himself now. They ask why he's hiding from the dynasty, and he says that he is not the target of this interrogation. Orm asks about the assembly being divided, and Essek says the assembly isn't his specialty, but he heard most of the older members weren't totally on board, and seems that the younger ones of the assembly seem to have been the ones forced or made to join Ludinus. But they all disappeared after the solstice. Imogen asks if they are all as strong as Ludinus, and Astrid simply says no. Chenny asks about the relationship between the dynasty and the empire, as when he was there last, they were fighting. Essek explains that 7 years ago there was a peace brokered between the two of them, but there was still some conflict up north, typically to where they're heading. Astrid asks what Astrid thought she would get out of working with Ludinus, and Astrid said that she didn't get offered anything by him. He knew better than to ask her. She believes those who sided with him were with him for a long time, though. Orm asks how long Astrid has been in the assembly, and she says about 7 years. Orm asks how much time she spent with Ludinus. Astrid said that she didn't spend much time. The assembly is more of a bunch of individuals sort of doing stuff on their own, who eventually come together to do some stuff. Imogen asks who the closest person to Ludinus was in the assembly, and Astrid says that her master was, and she took his seat. Her master was Trent Ickathon. Chetney asks why she's in hiding, and Astrid said that the Empire isn't totally happy with the most powerful mages all disappearing, and she became a target because of that. Laudna asks if Astrid would like to go with them to Eiselcross. Astrid says no, and then asks if these are the type of people that Essek surrounds himself with now. Essek says that he is merely an escort for them and he is doing a favor. But they have promise, and that's why they work for the Tempest. Astrid at this moment is like flicking her fingers to see if any magic has returned, and it hasn't yet. She says she's not their enemy and asks for the party to tell people how helpful she was and how she didn't get in their way if they succeed. They ask her for any more information that she can give. A group persuasion check comes out, and they all roll stupid high with the exception of Ashton, who rolls with a 2, but it doesn't affect anything. Astrid looks over the party and sees that there's more than meets the eye to them. They're not just a bunch of bumblefucks. She says to find a weakness in any of the other members in the assembly, in case anything goes wrong with them, they should be able to turn them. She did notice a quirk that Ludinus had. Every now and then he had an itch on the back of his neck. She has her theories about it, that maybe it might be an illness or some sort of echo of his experiments. But he noticed that she noticed once, and he shot her an intense glare. The first time he saw him show any of his cards. Fern asks what she thinks it is, and Astrid says maybe it's just a rash, going off a joke that the rest of the party was making. Laudna asks what happened to the buildings in the city. Astrid said that she's been in here ever since the solstice started, and that Iva has been a good host, so she hasn't really had to leave much. But she does know a terrible flaming bird of black and purple flames flew over the streets before it was stopped by someone. The party wonder what it is. Chenny asks if Essek knows where the Genesis ward is, and Essek says yes, he knows, but they should probably talk elsewhere, and then looks over at Astrid. He thinks it'll be easy to find any traces of Ludinus, as their work should leave some sort of path behind. Travis, above table, asks if Astrid is wearing any sort of jewelry that jumps out, and he makes a perception check. He rolls a 18. She has a bit of chainmail on under her clothes or under her outer layer of clothes, and she has some rings on her hands, but there's nothing around his neck, which is what he was specifically looking for. For those curious as to what he was looking for some sort of amulet that Trent Ickathon had a lot of, which would like block people from scrying in on them. The Campaign 2 characters all stole a bunch of them when they went up to Islecross / Aor in Campaign 2. Fern asks if there are if there's anything else that Astrid can give them information-wise, and Astrid said that she wishes she could, but he is hard to read, and he is very capable of reading others. That itch was the only thing that she noticed that was a little bit off about him. The party lets her go. Astrid asks if she'll end up fighting if need be, and Astrid says only if they come for her. Outside of that, she has no plans of it. Astrid then tries to snap her fingers. Nothing happens as she looks over at Essek and asks if he minds. He asks if the party have anything else that they need from her, and they all say no. Essek drops the anti-magic field, and Astrid retakes her form, that is, Irma, and then starts reading her book again. Essek puts his illusion of Seth back up, and they start to leave. Iva asks if everything is alright, and the party simply say yes. Iva then yells back to Irma to see if she's okay, and Irma confirms that she is. The party asks before they leave what Iva's favorite book is, and she said her 3rd edition of Tusk Love. Isn't that everyone's favorite book? Chetney then buys it, for a little bit too much. The party then, after buying one book, snowball into buying a million more porn books. As they are leaving, Iva tells them if they go to the Menagerie Coast to reach out to her friend Yusa. He hasn't responded to her recently and she's worried. They say if they go there, they will definitely look at him, or look for him. And after that, they finally leave the Chastity's Nook. They spend way too long in this smut shop. Essek tells the party they need to get ready to go north, getting clothing that's appropriate. And Ashton thinks that the party needs a group therapy session, but they need to get coats and other shit first. They agree to meet up at the Penta Market once they're all done with their shopping. Imogen asks if they have any AC raising magic items, but the party doesn't. It seems like they're going to be on a shopping episode here. Great. Essek says to find him once they are done. Ashton tells the party that he's fucked up right now, and he says back at the Greymore Orphanage, they did this thing where they would try to, patch a hole that was left behind by someone who they lost, and he says that he is going to make a new jacket for FCG. He says that they should figure out who they are today and who they want to be for each other. They can work together and come up with some sort of idea for how they can honor FCG. They start looking for a place to buy magic items and to buy custom clothing. The area they are in right now doesn't have any major magic shops. It's mostly smaller stuff in scale, like magical knickknacks, stuff that can turn water into alcohol, sort of thing. They do eventually find a inn that they could stay at, known as the Pillow Trove. It's a massive looking inn that's very fancy looking. It was a place that the Mighty Nine stayed in for Campaign 2 a little bit. They also find a place called the Emerald Curtain, a place to make nice fancy looking clothing. They enter the Emerald Curtain. They see fine silks and cotton all over the place, and they have a strong scent of dyes hitting the air. The employees aren't doing much, as the recent events seems to have no one buying any clothing, but they all stand at attention once the party walk in. An older man approaches them and he asks what they need. Ashton says they need a custom clothing design done as they are musicians, and they need a way to memorialize a friend they lost. Laudna then shows them an illusion of FCG to show them exactly the direction they're looking for. Ashton says it's for when they look at each other to be reminded about what they lost. He also says that they need heavy cloaks because they're going up north. The man says custom work takes a while, but they don't really have a backlog right now, and if they need clothing for their journey, they might want to look around for some stuff they have in stock. Fern asks for some yellow cloth, which is very easy for them to get. Dorian wants some jeweler's tools, which is perfectly fine. They're able to find that for him. Orem says that he needs his armor patched up and some stuff added to it. The old man yells for a younger man named Keith, and the younger man runs up and is told to do so. Orem wants to add FCG's shoulder to his armor, which is very sad. Dorian looks for the most artsy-fartsy person in the room, and he finds a slim half-elf who isn't really interested in the party. He's in a corner carving a piece of wood. Dorian goes over to him and drops off the stuff that he got from Keyleth, and says that he has a vision for his new outfit and would like the half-giant to be a part of making it. The half-giant is named Demid, and Dorian hands over a drawing of what he has an idea of roughly. Demid asks if he can put his own spin on it, and Dorian says yes, and they get to work. Laudna gets a new corset with some purple dyes. Fern keeps FCG's jacket, and she wants to do the work herself. Imogen looks for a more battle-ready set of clothing than what she has now. She gets a dark blue set of pants, much like FCG's jacket, and she also gets a black corset like Laudna. Ashlyn then goes nuts, putting things together, giving them instructions. Nothing too clear about what exactly is going to happen, but it seems like it's going to be a nice new outfit. They also buy their cloaks, as they wanted earlier, and the employees are running around the place like headless chickens trying to help the group out, as this is the only bit of service they've been able to provide for a while, and it seems like it's going to be a costly one. Fern asks Ashlyn for his old belt. Ashlyn says that he wants to trade. Fern says for what, but Ashlyn says that he can either tell her or he can try to steal it later. And Fern very much likes that idea. Chenny asks for a black fur-lined leather coveralls with a blue fabric square, because Travis is making the most of a shopping episode. He also asks for leather briefs, which is going to be the most, that's just uncomfortable sounding. He also asks for FCG's shoulder to be added to that. I am terrified for all of the new art that's going to be made, but I'm also very excited for it. The old man at the start says the total is going to be about 235 gold pieces. Laudna says they need it by the morning, and they pay 250 total. The man says that they will work through the twilight to make sure that it gets done. After this, the party want to look for some magic items. They leave the Tri-Spire and ask around. When they get to the Penta Market, they see some places are still closed, but others are trying to open back up and get the ball rolling. They get some snacks as they move around, and eventually they are told to go to a store called the Invulnerable Vagrant. Fuck yes. They go inside the store, and it seems to be empty at first, but a bell goes off as they step in. A furbolg comes up from the back. His name is Pumat Sol. Motherfucking Pumat Sol. Let's go. He welcomes them in and asks what they need. Imogen says that they are heading out on a dangerous journey to the north, and he says that it's been a while since some adventurers have come through. Most of his stuff is currently on loan, as, recent events have needed that to be necessary. At this moment, a person looking just like Pumat Sol comes out and asks what's going on. The first one says that he's explaining why they don't have very many items, and then tells him to go find whatever he can. Pumat Sol then explains that a phoenix came out of the mountain nearby and flew over the city. The party asks what is going on with the dude that looks just like him, and they both say that they are Pumat Sol. At this moment, a third one runs down the stairs and says that they are also Pumat Sol. And they say that Pumat Prime isn't currently here, which sucks. The party asks what happened with the giant phoenix. Pumat says people came together and drove it off. They're not sure exactly how, but they were eventually able to push it back. Laudna asks what they are, and Pumat says that they are simulacrums. Imogen says that they fought a simulacrum once of Ludinus. Pumat then sends the other hymns to get some stuff for the party. He then asks who they are, and the party say that they are the Bell's Hells, and he likes their name. He hopes they come into great fortune, as he believes that they are currently just starting their adventure. Imogen asks for potions, and Pumat says that he has some, and he grabs 7 different vials. The other two at this moment come back with some stuff in their hands, studded leather armor that's green and has a rune on its chest. The rune is a symbol for the winds. There's also a robe with long sleeves with a black rune on it, and there is a 10-stringed harp with a handle. Ashlyn asks if they do custom enchantments. Pumat says yes, but Pumat Prime is the one who normally does it, and he can't do it because he's not here at the moment. They ask about the items. The robe is the Robe of the Midnight Rune. It is a base 14 AC plus dexterity. It gives advantage against charming spells, and the wearer glows on the back where the rune is, only when the rune is activated, and when it's active, they have a +2 to their spell save DCs, which is fucking cracked, just a little bit. The leather armor is actually from Zephyra. The wearer has advantage on acrobatics checks and dex saving throws, and when the rune is activated, they can cast Wind Wall. Lastly is the harp. It can be used as a short bow and give +2 to attack and damage rolls, and can cast Magic Missile and a Thunder Wave spell. He also has 3 healing potions, or 3 greater healing potions and 2 superior healing potions. There is a potion of speed, and the last potion is a potion of invulnerability. Dorian asks if Orym likes the Zephyr armor. Orym says yes, but they don't really have the money. Chetney has all the money and they think it's too expensive. Dorian says that he can get it for him and takes out 2,500 gold, which is the asking price for the armor, and hands it to Orym. The party want to strike a deal with Pumat and maybe trade something. Orym takes out the sword from the moon, the glass sword. He asks if he trades. They ask if he trades and buys things from other people, and Pumat says yes. It's kind of how he gets a lot of his items. Chetney hands him the Sick Sliver Oil, or Slick Sliver Oil, that they got all the way back in the Shattered Teeth. Pumat looks it over. He says that it'll knock about $400 off the grand total that they're going to be looking at. Orym says that they have some rare stuff, and he pulls out the Ruidus Blade, and Laudna takes out one of her daggers. He looks it over and thinks it's very strange and can't place the materia at all. He asks where they got it. Imogen points up. This confuses Pumat, as upstairs is the room above them, so he doesn't understand, but they eventually say that it's from the moon. Pumat says the moon has been acting weird lately. They haven't seen it for a while. He asks who got it from there for them. Laudna says that they got it and shows them the Juggernaut finger. Pumat is shocked by this, as he thought they were just starting out on their adventure and that there are stuff like this just lying around on the moon. Imogen says in his head, it's not a lie, they were there. She asks if he's seen any Riolans. He says he doesn't know what that is, and she says it's the people that live on the moon, or at least one of them. Pumat says that they don't go out very often, so they don't really know. Imogen asks what Pumat Prime is doing. He says he's likely gathering material. Imogen says that there are a lot of highly powerful people moving around right now, and they could use some help. With a persuasion check of 31, Pumat says that they seem to be telling the truth, and he tells the other versions of himself this. He's not sure what the weapons do, or says there's no more precedent for something like this, but he says that they need to talk it out amongst the three of them before they can figure out a deal. Dorian asks if the weapons have value outside of just bartering. Laudna explains what they do by showing the little item card. Pumat comes back and says that they looked it over, and they do believe that it's very rare, and for the dagger, they can knock off 1,000 gold, and for the short sword, they can knock off 1,500. Laudna says that there's no weapon like these on the planet. They can charge whatever they want for it to a collector. Persuasion check of 23. He respects that, but doesn't think it's going to be a very easy sell based on just their word to other people. He does, however, increase the number to 1,500 gold and 1,100 gold for each item. After some number crunching, they get all three of the big items: the speed potion, the potion of invulnerability, the 2 superior healing potions, and the 3 greater healing potions. The robe goes to Imogen, the leather armor goes to Orym, and the harp goes to Chetney after some talking about who has available spaces, because all of these items require attunement. The party is also out of gold, or damn near close to it. Pumat then thanks them for their business and hopes that they come back and eventually meet Pumat Prime. All three of them wish them good luck. At this moment, Imogen is sad, as they realize that the moon is invisible from here, which would prove that the world is not flat, meaning that they could have proved it to FCG. Pumat tells them to avoid a bunch of places up north, as shit seems to be going to hell, including devils, undead, merfolk, all sorts of bad shit going on. With that, the party leave the best magic shop in Critical Role history. Yes, I am saying that. No, I will not be arguing with anybody about this. It's just facts. Orym then thanks Dorian for the armor. Dorian says that he just likes to see him happy, and the party wonder how to pay for an inn, but Ashton thinks that Essek will do that for them. The party thank Chetney for doing the calculation with the money, and at this moment, Seth, Essek, approaches the party. He asks if they were successful in their endeavors, and the party say yes, but now they need to rest up and relax and do some crafting. Seth says that there are places for them to rest, and he leads them towards the edge of the Pentamarket, to a place called the Lodge of the Eclipse. The smell of ale immediately hits them as they walk in, and this place is very, very, very busy. It seems to be very popular. Essek leads them to the clerk's desk, and they see that there is a small stage with 3 musicians playing on it. Essek goes up to the clerk, and it's a gnomish man with massive mutton chops. He asks if they're looking for a place to stay. They only have 2 rooms available. Essek takes both. One is a smaller room and one is a much larger suite. They are just staying for the night, and Essek leans in and says just to charge them the correct price and not finagle them any bit. And he waves his hand, and the gnome says that that'll be a gold piece for the 2 rooms. Chetney takes the suite key. Essek will take the small room to himself, and the others can have the big room. Fern thinks that he should stay with them. They're a bunch of fun. And Orem just pipes up and says, how about only 1 drink? Persuasion check from Fern. 28 on the roll. At this moment, a burlesque show is about to start, and Essek wants to run upstairs and talk and not, watch this show. But Dorian pushes his way up to the front, and the rest follow. Imogen stays back with Essek. At this moment, a burlesque performance starts, and there's a bunch of different dancers doing a bunch of different stuff. Great. Some people don't care for it in the bar. It becomes very clear that most of the people here are here for some sort of escapism after a traumatic experience. Lana gets mad at some people who are talking during the show and scares them a little bit. Imogen talks to Essek in his head. She says that she knows that they seem rowdy, but it's been a rough 24 hours for them. Essek says that he understands more now than ever. He understands finding moments of joy. It's something that those who live longer have a hard time with. Imogen says it feels like a betrayal to feel happy. Essek says that he felt that way, but not anymore. He says it feels that way because their history tells them pain is what gives them purpose. But a wise man once told him that it's not pain that makes people, it's love that makes people. Caduceus Clay. Imogen says a wise man told her that it's good to make every day a smiley day. Essek says he'll have to think about that one. At this point, Fern and Laudna go upstairs to start crafting. Ashton then hugs Fern and tries to steal something off of her. Sleight of hand check from Ashton, perception check from Fern. Ashton rolls a 21 and Fern rolls a 20. Ashton rips off a piece of lace. I'm not sure exactly what that is because I don't care for clothing. Chetney currently now is in the front row of the show, enjoying himself a little bit too much, and Dorian is right alongside him clapping. The MC of the show says that it's time for Madame Featherface, which scares the ever-living shit out of the party because they're a little worried that it's going to be Kiri, but Matt Mercer says that not everything has to be a reference, and thank God a dwarf woman walks on stage. For those who don't know, Kiri is like a companion character that the Mighty Nein came across, who was like a very young baby Kenku, so it would have been rather weird for 7 years later for her to be a part of a show like this. The dwarf woman puts on a fan dance performance. She has a beard of feathers that grants her flight, and she's able to use it to fly over the crowd. Eventually, this show ends. When it's over, Essek heads upstairs, but Ashton stops him first. He says he's on a bit of a side mission of self-discovery and asks him to look at his head. Imogen tells Essek in his mind not to dive too deep into it, as it could be dangerous. Essek thanks her for this warning. Ashton then rages, and his head goes clear. Essek thinks it's best to look at this privately. They all head upstairs to the suite at this point, except for Dorian and Chetney, who are still enjoying things. Essek seems excited by looking at Ashton's head. He takes a look at it, and is very perplexed and says that it's impossible. Essek then touches Ashton's head, and his eyes begin to glow. He then creates a dark bead. He puts it next to Ashton's head, and it begins to swirl inside like a storm. As it gets closer, there are more sparks that are going off within his head. Essek then moves it away, and it goes away. Essek asks if they are familiar with Dunamancy. They are not. Essek says that it's a pillar of magic that is mostly practiced in the dynasty. It is from the Luxon, a being who, in the dynasty's history of the world, or in their religion, I guess, is the creator of the world. And it split itself into artifacts, and these artifacts are very powerful. The dynasty has a lot of them. The magic type is about changing the fabric of reality. Ashton explains how he got it. Essek looks over his head. He thinks that the assembly has gotten their influence over a lot of things, including Ashton, and believes that Ashton is a very dangerous individual. Essek thinks that it's remarkable, and he's very unique and would like to study Ashton once this is all over. Essek says to not share this with anyone else. Other people are very powerful and very dangerous and would be willing to take him apart to figure out how it works. Ashton says that other people trust Essek, so he trusts him, and Essek says that he should not trust anyone. This scares the party a little bit. Ashton says that he's trying to be a better person and change the definition of friendship, which used to be people that you want to trust. Cheney then bursts into the room with a feather that he got from the dancer, saying he's very excited, and Dorian tries to play it off, saying that everyone probably gets one per show. At this point, the party start crafting stuff to add to their new outfits. Chetney is carving some wood. Orym asks if he can go into the bag of holding. He then grabs Odahan's rapier and then walks outside. At this moment, Dorian pulls out the Gambler's Blade, Bertrand's old sword, and starts swinging it around and looking it over a little bit. Imogen asks if Ludinus has knowledge of Dunamancy to Essek, and Essek says that he has quite a lot of it, actually. Imogen asks about the artifacts and if they are in Aor. Essek says that there are still some in Aor, but they've had access to, the Assembly has had access to the artifacts in the past, and it's actually Essek's fault. It's kind of why he's on the run. He thinks part of the reason Ashton has that thing in his head is actually Essek's fault. Essek makes an illusion of a beacon and explains that it is a fragment of the Luxon and the Dynasty have most of them, but the Assembly had one and they may have come across others, and they seem to have been able to add its power to many devices. The vial that ended up in Ashton's head is from it. The party know there are something similar to the beacon within the Malleus Key. Ashton says that he's seen that in his dreams before. Essek says that when trying to be a better person, you remember a lot of the bad things you've done. Essek says that this answers how they were able to tether the moon to Exandria. Essek believes that the reason Ludinus is still in Aor is because he needs something there. Imogen asks if Predathos is related to the Luxon at all, but Essek isn't sure. He doesn't know much about Predathos. Laudna says that he is a god-eater, and Essek said that that's fine, but just not in Ludinus' hands. Essek thinks that if they could gather other Dunamancers, he could possibly disrupt the tether to the moon. But that would mean they would have no way of traveling between the two places. Laudna actually informs them that they know of a back door. Essek says that they can use it if things go wrong at the very least. Fern asks if Essek has a special someone, and Essek says yes, and he is wrestling with his own problems right now. Neither of them wouldn't be here if they didn't have others to help them. Solitude isn't great for most people. Laudna says that she actually became very creative when she was alone. Essek says that he is spent and would like to go back to his room. He then floats off and goes back to his room. He turns back into Setha as he leaves the room. The party continue crafting. Ashton says that he met FCG when he was paid to look at something that had gone wrong in a mine. He found the slaughter that was Dancer's party, and everything was a mess except for FCG, who reactivated. The help cleaned up and were way too happy about it. Ashton knew he found the best roommate, someone who wouldn't complain about cleaning up after him. Meanwhile, outside, Orym, he is at a park bench that he found across the way. He looks at the blade, and he saw at three pivotal moments in his life. His husband and his father being cut down, Laudna and Fern and himself being cut down, and then lastly seeing FCG erupt into a ball of light. He thinks of the people in the cities across the world that don't know what's coming. He looks at the sword and grips it. It's different from the ones that he normally uses. It's heavier. He feels out the weight of the blade. He then eventually starts to move faster and faster with it as he practices. He's using it so much that his arm begins to hurt. He's sweating very heavily. He sees Ludinus, and then he looks at the blade again. He places it to his back, and vines sprout out and create a sheath for it. It's right next to Seedling on his back. It begins to rain, but he looks up and there's no clouds above. Orym then sits alone on the park bench for a while. The rain keeps going. He feels like he could sit there forever. The rain is very warm, and he can feel the Wild Mother touching his shoulders through it. He then begins to head back inside. The rest are still crafting away. Laudna casts animate objects on Sashimi and a bunch of other shit in the room, including Ashton's mini doll of himself. And everyone gets some sort of mini assistant because of it. This is when Dorian notices that Pate is alive. This terrifies Dorian at first, and he asks if it's too late to back out of this. Pate just laughs. Dorian asks if he's nice, and Laudna says yes. Dorian thinks that that's actually a lie, but they very quickly begin to bond with each other as they tickle each other. Fern goes out to find Orym. She sees him as he starts to walk back towards the inn. She asks if he's okay, and he says that she knows the answer already, and he says that she's one to talk and asks about how she feels about talking with her dad. She thanks him for protecting her, and she asks if they're going to be okay. He squeezes her hand and they hug. At this moment, Dorian comes down, and they tell him to join in the hug. They all hug for a bit, the OG crew that was together when the campaign started. They reminisce about the journey they had before, including Orym pleading for Dorian not to take the crown. Fern asks how Dorian is doing, and he says that he's alright, but he's not sure quite yet how he'll feel at the end of all this. Fern says that she's going to go back inside and let Dorian and Orym have a moment together here to get caught up. Dorian says that she's not very subtle, and Orym agrees. Orym says the reason he didn't want Dorian to take the crown back then was so that he didn't drag himself down. Dorian says that he's done a lot since then, but feels like life will drag you down regardless of what you try to do. You can't protect everyone all the time. Orym says he tried to reach out a lot, and that doing so helped him get through a lot of hard moments. Dorian says he wouldn't be here without Orym, and he is here now with him. Dorian takes Orym's hand, and they go back inside. They all finish up their night of crafting, and they all find some sleep, with the exception of Laudna, who is the last one awake. She looks at the Odahan blade on the back of Orym. She hates it. Delilah says that it's bad to keep something like that so close. Laudna asks if it will turn Orym evil, and Delilah says that she needs to hold it. Laudna asks if she was part of the assembly at some point, and if she knew Ludinus. Delilah says that she was, and she does know Ludinus. Laudna asks what she needs to know about Ludinus. Delilah says that he doesn't have any friends, and those who are nearby him can only be used for so long before he tosses them to the side. Laudna says that Delilah should help her out more. They made a deal after all. Delilah says that she needs to give her more. Laudna then snakes over to Orym and looks at the Odahan blade. Laudna knows that Orym is very perceptive. She looks at the vine sheath, and she runs her finger along the hilt. She can feel the hum of power. The history of this blade has killed many people before even Odahan used it. Laudna asks Delilah if there is a consciousness to it. Delilah says that she needs to wield it. She casts darkness on the room. Only she can see now, even though everyone's asleep. She then casts Wither and Bloom at an area just to where it'll hit the vine sheath and not hit Orym. But she needs to do this just right. She makes an Arcana check to make sure that it actually works. She rolled a 11. Orym suddenly feels the air escape from his lungs, and he feels a pain on his back. Orym wakes up and sees nothing due to the darkness. Laudna sees him wake up. Orym stands up and immediately pulls out Seedling and goes for a full circle blade swing attack. Laudna tries to spider climb out of there. They do a contested dex roll to see who goes first. Orym wins. He rolls an attack roll at disadvantage because of the darkness, and with a 17, Laudna has to cast Shield. His blade hits off something, and he swings again 2 more times. These 2 hit. He deals 18 damage with the first swing and makes it a pushing attack. She's pushed back 10 feet into the wall. This loud noise of her being pushed into the wall wakes the others. The third attack is an air slash, and he deals 12 damage to her. She makes 2 con saves for darkness, and it stays up. She then spider climbs up the wall a little bit. Orym, however, being as perceptive as he is, hears this happen. Laudna then casts Mage Hand and tries to rip the sword away from his back. She rolls a 16 and pulls the blade free, and then she pulls it towards her. Laudna says, "Tell me." Delilah says, "Yes, that it must be destroyed." Laudna says that this will protect Orym, and Orym attacks again. He air slashes again and hits. He makes it a tripping attack, 22 on the dex save. 22 damage. Dex save from Laudna. However, with Spider Climb, she's able to succeed no matter what. Con save, she loses darkness because she did not make the con save. The darkness drops. The party all look up and see Laudna holding the blade with the exception of Chetney, who's still asleep. Orym then uses Grasping Vine to pull the blade back to him. Laudna, however, uses Counterspell on the Grasping Vine, which works. Orym then jumps up and swings and does a disarming attack. He deals 22 damage to Laudna and she drops the blade. It sinks into the wall. Orym then action surge and dashes towards the blade and grabs it. Everyone gets up and sees what's going on. Lana then drops down. She casts Phantasmal Force on Orym. Intelligence saving throw from Orym. He actually makes the save with a 20. He asks what's going on, and she said he's not safe with that sword. It will corrupt him. Orym asks for help from the others. Lana says that she sensed an evil presence on the blade. Lana says that all the terrible things that the blade has done, why would he want to wield it? He says he's going to use it to run it through the guy who actually made all those bad things happen. She asks why he needs that thing to do it. He says, why does she need the dark force that's within her to do anything? Imogen says, it's bad, maybe they should look it over. Orym says this isn't very convincing and that he was attacked. He then shows the damage from the Wither and Bloom. Lana tries to explain, but Ashen simply whispers into her ear, start with, I'm sorry. He then takes a defensive position between the two of them looking at Orym. Orym says that he's fine to be wrong, but they should have started with talking first. Lana says that she didn't mean to hurt him, but she finds it to be a slap in the face to wear something like that on his back without talking to the rest of the party. Fern says that she knows Identify, so she can look at it. Orym places it on the table next to Fern. Imogen goes over to Laudna. Imogen casts Detect Thoughts on Laudna. She sensed Laudna feels justified within her mind. Imogen says that this seems out of character, and they can talk about things before they do stuff like this. Nothing has to be done in secret. Laudna says the time was of the essence. Imogen does an insight check and gets a 21 and gets a whisper. In Laudna's head, she hears, was this all you, from Imogen. Laudna says yes. Fern casts Identify on the blade. The blade is Ishta, a legendary saber. She feels a long history of death. The blade edge is stained with a rusty red. There seems to be no sentience to it, just a dark history. She tells them it's got a dark history, and Ashen wonders what Chetney would have to say about it, but he is still asleep. Fern goes over and wakes up Chetney. They ask him to use Grim Psychometry on it, and he does so. With a history roll of 17, he sees flashes of sparks as the hammer is made, a smile looking over the work as it is inspected, and then suddenly that person is killed. The sword is grabbed by the person who ordered it. He then sees 50 lives being cut short, all of them wearing different armors, signifying they are from different locations. Different hands hold the blade over time. A gloved-covered hand of an assassin killing mothers and children. He sees a rich man, and in a flash, they are killed. Chetney watches hundreds of lives end. He sees Zephyra, the blade cutting through Keyleth. He then sees Laudna, Fern, and all the party getting cut down. He then comes to. This was a murderous history for the blade. Chetney throws up from it. He hands the blade back to Fern. They ask what he saw, and he says that the blade is death and suffering. It didn't matter who it was, it's terrible. There is no sentience to it, however. Fern says it caused a rift with the group already. Chetney asks what group it is, or what rift it created, and they explain what happened. Ashton says that he gets why Orym is wearing it. Laudna says that she didn't mean to hurt him. Laudna opens the window with Mage Hand. Orym says Chetney has an apron that never stops bleeding. He doesn't even need to touch on what's going on with Laudna. He says that he made a deal with Nanamori. Fern's eyes open wide at this revelation. Chetney then goes over to the window and closes it. Laudna says to let her take it in. She asks why he needs the blade. He says to kill Ludinus with it. She can use the power within to do the same thing, just without, having to use the actual blade, and to not have to look at it. He doesn't see why they can't just use it. She says that he has a blade from the Tempest. Why is he giving that up? He says that it is actually from his family, not from the Tempest, and he's not giving it up. He's saving the other blade for Ludinus. This is all Orym has. Practice. She doesn't need it. Laudna shows the wounds that Orym gave her and says that she just bruised him. She then opens the window again. Ashton tells Fern to stand by the window. She does so. Orym says that he is not about revenge. Laudna then opens the door because everyone keeps closing the fucking window on her. Orym says that he doesn't love what she did. Laudna says that she doesn't love what he did. Imogen grabs Laudna's hand. Dorian thinks Orym should keep the sword. They are friends, and it's his to possess. Laudna says that it isn't his to possess. Dorian says that it's just a thing. Its history doesn't shape them. Their actions do. and her action says that she doesn't trust her friends. Laudna says that he doesn't know what he is talking about. Dorian says that it was the person, not the weapon. Laudna mage hands the sword over to her from the table. Imogen grabs the blade. Wisdom saving throw from Laudna. She rolls an 18. She can feel the presence of Delilah pushing through, wanting her to do this, but she doesn't have control. It's up to Laudna. Imogen says to let go. She doesn't think that it's her who wants this. Laudna says that he shouldn't be allowed to have it. It's a reminder of the pain they've all suffered. Why not destroy it? Imogen doesn't like it, but Dorian is right. It was Odahan, not the sword. Laudna says that it's a symbol. Imogen doesn't understand why she wants it to be a part of her then. Laudna releases her grip. Imogen puts the sword back down. Chetney says that he has a suggestion and holds up Scream Needle, Odahan's other blade. It's a dagger. He thinks the sword is Orm's. He's lost more than the rest of them have. He trusts them both. She can have Scream Needle and he keeps the sword. She thanks him but tells him to not speak about loss to her ever again, and then leaves out the window using Spider Climb after taking the dagger. Fern tries to close the window, but Laudna's too fast. Imogen then casts Fly on herself and goes out the window after her. Laudna is on the roof holding Scream Needle. She takes her form of Dread, and it's just Delilah, a shadow form of Delilah. Imogen sees this and looks at her from behind. She says, Laudna. Laudna then plunges the dagger into her chest. Imogen sees Laudna's face through Delilah's shadow. There is a purple light in the wound from the blade. Tendrils then grab the blade and pull it in towards Laudna's being. There's an exhale, but it's not Delilah. But it's not Laudna's exhale. Imogen then floats down and sees Laudna's face within the shadow of Delilah. She looks like she's in a Delilah cage. Imogen touches Laudna's face and asks why. Laudna says, why what? And Delilah echoes this word. Imogen asks why she gave her more power. Laudna says that it must be done for her, for us, for the fate of the world. What else does she have to give other than herself? Imogen says that she didn't have to do this. They fought so hard. Imogen says that she loves her. Laudna says it back, and Delilah doesn't echo it this time. At this moment, the shadow vanishes. The form of Dread is dropped. Laudna asks why Imogen wouldn't think that she would still love her. Imogen says that she has more power than she let the others believe. Laudna says that she didn't lie to her. She asks Imogen if she still loves her. Imogen says she always will, she just doesn't know what to do with it right now. Laudna says that she's always been a lot. Imogen says yes, and scary. Laudna says still more fun than scary, right? Imogen says yes. Laudna says that she didn't mean it, and they hug. On the roof, underneath the moon of Katha, there is much pain, love, and concern. This is where the episode ends. So there you have it, episode 95 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. This was an up and down episode for sure. It started off really strong with the interrogation of Astrid, and then it ended really strong with the whole argument over the sword. I thought that was really good. Both characters have a lot of good points about like who should have the sword, should it be used, why he should have it, why she should absorb it. They both have a good, like, they're both right in a way. They're both right. There is a right for Orm to hold it and have it. It did cut down his family. But there is also a right for them to just get rid of it and absorb the power and use its strength as opposed to having it as a constant reminder. So they're both right in this moment. The way Laudna went about it, or the way Delilah wanted things to go about it, not so much. So it kind of paints Laudna in the negative light here, which is fair and is very true. So realistically, both sides are correct, but one went about it in the completely wrong way. Orm is correct in the fact that they should have said, like, you know, talked it out, but they didn't. Also, I love the return of Pumat Sol. Obviously, Campaign 2 is my favorite campaign, so any return of Campaign 2 characters, much like Astrid and Essek, is awesome for me, so I'm very much enjoying all of it. The only part of this episode I didn't fucking care for was the goddamn fucking shopping for clothing thing. I don't understand this need, and this isn't a Critical Role thing. This is a D&D thing in general. I don't understand this need to do pointless shopping, to go and to get, like, materials for casting spells or anything like that, for shopping for clothing, shopping for food and shit like that. Just, your DM can figure it out at the end of the episode. You guys go get 10 rations. You guys go get your clothing. You guys go get your arrows. You guys go get your sword. You know, like, magic items I get, but, like, the random shopping, I'm not a big fan of. I'm very much of the Travis Willingham mindset of, let's fucking move on from this shit and just be like, okay, we got the thing that we needed. So, that's the only part of the episode I don't like, which took up, like, an hour and a half, which kind of sucks. But it was nearly a 5-hour episode, so realistically, that's okay to have. But everything else, 3/4 of this episode, I fucking love. 1/4 of the episode, I wasn't a big fan of. Overall, very fun episode. Very excited to see where everything goes from here. Very tempted to bring up the bingo card and say Delilah kind of took over a little bit, but we're just going to leave it alone for now. Anyway, I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I make next. Peace.